Well, welcome everybody. It's nice to see faces out here and some of them familiar. I'm Kristin Jhamb. I'm an internist and I have been doing this for 31 years. And
I'm Paul Burns. I'm a sous chef. I've been doing it for just as long. Occasionally I work as a cardiologist as well, some of you may know. Tonight, mostly sous chef, however. So yeah, we just thought we would talk a little bit about some of the things we do, a little bit about Mediterranean diet, which we'll talk about in a second, and then show one of our family favorites, which is pretty simple and I think pretty good. You'll find out.
Yeah. So do you want to start first? I'll let you come this way or so you can see the slides, and I'll stay out of the way.
Sort of based, often as a cardiologist I'm asked, what diet should I follow? And as many of you know, diet is really a loaded word, and I think in general it's hard to follow a true diet. I think I tell people diet is a lifestyle, meaning you have to, it's sort of like exercise. You got to pick something you like. If you pick something you don't like or you can't sustain, I mean, anyone can lose weight or get stronger or exercise more, but not necessarily continue it. So not only is the Mediterranean diet, which I'll talk about in generalities, I think good for you, but it's quite sustainable. I mean, a large part of the world follows it, and it's quite palatable and, in fact, quite desirable. And some of what we're doing tonight is based on that. So what is the Mediterranean diet in sort of broad strokes, and why is it helpful? So basically, I sort of think of the Mediterranean diet as it's not a vegetarian diet, but it's sort of based on fruits, vegetables, beans, seeds, nuts, and healthy oils and lean proteins. So that includes a lot. I mean, the Mediterranean diet is called that because countries where they have really good food, like Italy, Spain, Greece, follow the Mediterranean diet. Some include moderate alcohol consumption, though this was developed, or I should say published, before some of the most recent data about alcohol, which is really disappointing for those of us who like to drink in moderation, because there's actually some data that says that alcohol at any dose may not be good for you and may increase risk of cancer. That being said, I think the risk is low, but I think that there's going to be some reckoning, and that we're going to hear more about that. So fruit, as I say, so the basic tenet is that it's based on lean meats, so fish, particularly cold water fish, salmon, sardines, tuna. These are fish that are high in omega-3 fatty acids, which are heart healthy. Little in the way of red meat and processed food, so little in the way of beef and sausages and some of the things that we love, which doesn't mean never. I always tell my patients everything in moderation, but it shouldn't be the staple. And even eggs and yogurt and cheese in moderation. Again, low-fat cheeses are preferable, hard cheeses to soft cheeses. There's some data about eggs in moderation. There's some good protein and fatty acids in eggs, so an egg is not the end of the world. And most of us think about our cholesterol and say, gee, if I eat a lot of cholesterol and there's cholesterol in an egg, that's going to raise my cholesterol. But most of the cholesterol in our body is actually made by our body. It's not from the food we take. So actually cholesterol is raised more by eating saturated fat than it is by eating cholesterol. So whole grain foods, and whole grain is different than multigrain. So whole grain, and my assistant Kristin is going to tell us to remind me what whole grain is. Yes, what are those?
We looked at each other last night and said, so what are those three things, right? Does anyone remember what those three things are that make something a whole grain? It has to do with like bran, germ, and endosperm. So
when they process a lot of grains, they take off some of the nutrients, so that all you get is the starch, but not the fiber and the nutritional benefit. So it's important to read labels and choose whole grains. As I say, if you're looking at, you go to the bread aisle, you'll see multigrain, But multigrain does not mean that it's whole grain. You can have multiple non-whole grain grains. So again, it's a matter of choosing, and reading. Whole grain cereals, oatmeal, and this is just to point out that an increase in diet in refined grains is associated with weight gain, and conversely, whole grains have been associated with weight loss, presumably because of some of the nutrients absorbed, have some digestive benefit. And as I mentioned, eggs in moderation are part of the diet and are healthy. And as I pointed out before, it's great. It's sustainable. It's edible. It's not something like some of these crazy diets, some of the high protein diets, the Atkins diet, or other high fat diets, which may allow you to lose weight but aren't, I think, sustainable in the long term. So quite a large number of people were followed for 12 years with a 25% reduced risk of heart disease. It was interesting the way they did it. It was really hard to do, as you can imagine, because not everyone can follow this to a T. But they do questionnaires as to see how closely it is followed. So the more closely someone follows a Mediterranean type diet, the reduced risk of coronary artery disease or heart-related issues. Kristin and I got a chuckle out of this. This is supposed to read cardio prevention study, but it says cardio. For those of us who are from Boston, it's a cardio prevention. Cardio. Anyway, again, reduced heart attack, stroke, peripheral arterial disease, and cardiovascular death. Reduces cancer, diabetes, and maybe neurologic disease. And there's some benefits in reduction of risk of pregnancy-induced hypertension and diabetes as well. Anna?
Oh, good. My turn to talk.
So that's
My
the
God.
That's the end of the lecture. now on to more fun stuff.
So we have brought you all here tonight to teach you how to make grain balls. Now, has anyone had grain balls before? Okay. Really? Only one? Two?
You probably have, just didn't know it.
You just didn't know you were eating it. Okay. So grain balls basically is like a very in vogue term to just, talk about a meal that most of us are eating in some form, usually at this stage. It's just not in a bowl. So the grain bowl is basically starting with a grain base, and you can do whatever you want to use. You can use quinoa, you can use polenta, sweet potatoes, bulgur wheat. I love to make tabbouleh, and you can use that as a base, which is a Middle Eastern salad that uses bulgur wheat, fresh chopped up parsley, cucumbers, tomatoes, mint. I add feta. It's delicious. But wait, go back.
I might lose my job.
That's it, Vanna.
So, one of the things I always like to dispel is the great myth of white rice and brown rice. There are a few nutrients that brown rice has more of than white rice, but really, it's very little difference. And I'd say the main difference is fiber, and the amount of fiber we're talking about is so minuscule to me in the scope of your whole day that it's not worth fighting your family members about. Okay, and I say that because we have two daughters, ages soon to be 21 and soon to be 24. And they both were vegetarians. The oldest one has defected recently, and now she's a flexitarian.
AKA omnivore.
But they never liked brown rice. And when I would make brown rice, they turned their noses up, and the meal was ruined. So I started exploring this, and I realized that, yes, so brown rice has 1.6 grams of fiber in a serving, and white rice has about 0.8, okay? But how many grams of fiber should the average healthy diet have in a day? Anyone throw out a number? Is it 10, 20, 30? Anyone know? It's 30, exactly. We say 30 to 35 grams. That's astounding, isn't that, honey?
That's
I didn't mean to
unbelievable.
startle you.
Shocking.
But they recommend 30 to 35 grams of fiber in a day. So really, am I going to quibble about 0.8 grams of fiber? No. And wild rice is also got good flavor and good texture, and that has more fiber. So I didn't put wild rice up here, so you could do that. I would say that, you know, in our family with 2 persnickety kids growing up, you know, we just did jasmine rice. I love jasmine rice, which is the same as white rice, essentially. So, yeah, 20 minutes, you know, 15 to 20 minutes to cook it.
Arborio, too.
What's that?
Arborio.
Arborio. Thank you for reminding me of that, because I actually, I'll talk about that in a minute. But yes, arborio rice is another one. That takes a while to cook, though. Risotto, yep. So you got your base, whichever grain you prefer. Then you throw on your protein source. And we're going to do tofu tonight. But you can do chicken, you can do lean beef, you can do, we typically do salmon in our house. You know, everyone loves a salmon bowl. And beans. And then you throw on whatever you like. So in our house, everyone loves cauliflower. So we do roasted cauliflower. The adults in the house love zucchini. So we do a tray, and these are your best friend. These are the workhorses of the kitchen. The jelly rolls.
I thought it was me.
Oh yeah, well you are the workhorse, honey. But in terms of pans, I have about 6 of these. You can buy them cheaply at TJ Maxx. But and if you really want to minimize cleanup, you can use parchment paper on it. But I typically just put them right on the pan, and then he does dishes, so, you know.
It's a bad deal.
He also prefers parchment.
That's good.
So anyway, so we have 3, you know, turn on the oven to 425 degrees, roast, and 1 tray is cauliflower, 1 tray is zucchini, and the other tray is the tofu that goes in the oven. And boom, you know, you sort of cook them, move them around every 15 minutes, and in 30 minutes it's all coming out of the oven and then on top of your grain bowl. And then you customize. And so there are many ways to make this the bowl of your dreams. And in our house, the bowl of our dreams includes mushrooms. And I know a lot of people are allergic to mushrooms, or some people are anyway, so we decided we wouldn't do mushrooms for tonight. But we will get shiitake mushrooms, chop them up, and throw them on a pan. And they are so delicious.
Roasted in the oven.
Yeah, roasted in the oven.
Any vegetable roasted in the oven
Is delicious, right?
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
Any
Yeah.
caramelize, right? You caramelize it, you roast it long enough.
Yep.
It's so good. So yeah, so that's what we do. And then, you know, I think for color, we also like to do edamame on top, which are those green soybeans, which also have about 4 grams of fiber in a serving, and we'll show you all those things in a minute. We brought an avocado. You can make a tahini or yogurt spread to put on top. You can put hummus. Cilantro is great. Freshly grated ginger. Honey, can you pick up the ginger root? Yeah.
Freshly grated
Yeah.
ginger.
And I'm going to tell you a secret about the ginger in a second. Sesame seeds, which are, oops, I'm going to trip over the cord. You can buy these in bulk at the health food store, super cheap, but you know, toast them and put them on top, and it gives a nice texture and a little more fiber. And then Paul's favorite, he loves hot sauce. So, you know, he's got the chili, crunchy chili hot sauce. He's got sriracha. He's got Marie Sharp from Belize. You know, he's got every
That's
kind
my
of
favorite.
hot sauce.
If you like hot sauce, that stuff rules. Marie Sharp. It's
Yeah.
really good.
Tiger curry.
You could do that too, right?
You can get, I used to get it only online, but now you can, it's around.
Oh my God, I saw it at Rennie's
Yeah, it was at Rennie's, of all
in
places.
Bath.
We went to Belize on our honeymoon, and I discovered this stuff, and I was like, this is amazing. We're on our flight home, and I'm saying to Kristin, we should import this.
26 years ago.
And the guy in the back, in the seat behind me goes, too late, I already do. I was like,
It was,
oh,
it was
man.
pretty funny.
Wow.
I know, it's so funny.
So I wanted to tell you about the ginger root. So does anyone cook with ginger root? Oh, good, 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 good. Do you know the secret of how to store it?
You can stick it in the freezer.
Exactly. Okay. So most people don't know that though. So most people think, you get the ginger root, you make it for one recipe, and then you got to throw it out. Absolutely not. I stick it in a Ziploc, stick it in the freezer, and it's actually easier to grate that way. Yeah. So, and here's my little, right. So I just go like this into the marinade. The other thing I wanted to pick up from you was the risotto. So I think the other beauty of this sort of meal is that you can make it any ethnicity you want. So go with the Italian theme, and you've got risotto. So risotto, typically we'll use vegetable broth when we make the risotto because we've got these vegetarians at home. And we're mostly vegetarian at home, or pescatarians. We, eat fish at home. Yeah, so risotto, again, I'll roast vegetables, in the oven and stick them on top. And then you can do a Mexican burrito bowl. So you can do the same sort of thing, use white rice or jasmine rice, and open an easy midweek dinner. Open a can of beans, low sodium beans, rinse the beans, heat them up, toss them on top, some avocado, some carrot, some tomato, cheese for those who like cheese, and an egg on top. We're big on putting an egg on top.
Is there a big difference between the regular colored sesame seeds and the black sesame seeds? Because I have both.
No. No, but the black is, right. But I think the black is more dramatic. If you go to a fancy restaurant and they put the black toasted sesame seeds on top of your salmon.
Yeah, probably.
Yes. Okay, so we need 2 cloves of garlic. Okay, and feel free to ask questions as we're doing this.
So do you do this every night?
No, so I'm glad you asked that question because I do want to tell you how I do this. We'll just do that one carrot. What's that?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for recognizing that. So when Paul walks into the house and he smells what he knows are green balls, he's like, ah, my favorite meal. It is truly like our favorite meal in the house, for everyone. But it is, I cannot lie, it's a pain to do the prep work, which is why I employ him. No, but he's usually not doing all this, I'll usually do this ahead of time. So, everybody who's had kids knows how crazy busy it is during the week when you're, okay, let's see. So that's gonna go in here, honey. And then you can grate this, how's that?
Okay.
But everyone who has kids knows midweek is just crazy. So what I typically did when the kids were growing up and Paul was working, I was working, is that sometime like on Sunday I do the major grocery shop. I would sort of
Chopped or grated?
Grated. Oh, you know what? There's this.
No,
Use this
this
one.
is not going to work.
No, that's for the ginger, and we'll grate some ginger root in. But I would do have some idea about what I was going to cook for dinners over the week, do a little menu prep, do the grocery shop, and then I'm an early riser and I don't sleep much, but I do prep in the morning. And so I would, what I like to call it deadheading the cauliflower, but it's not really deadheading it, but you chop it in half and then you just pick it apart so that, all these little cauliflower heads. Can I have a?
That's the only knife for that.
Okay. Right.
And when I'm sleeping and I hear all this clicking and cracking, I'm like, what's going on down there?
Making dinner, honey. But yeah, I just, I'll turn a podcast on, put my headphones in and I'll just do, get this going, boom, boom, boom. And then I'll take all this and stick it in a Ziploc. So boom, it's done for whatever meal I decide I'm going to have it for. So, but you're right. eating healthfully takes a while. It's got to be an intentional part of your, week. So that's the cauliflower. But yeah, so I would do veg prep. I would make the marinade. I'd do the tofu in the morning so that when I got home, it's just a matter of throwing it onto sheet pans and throwing it in the oven. Cauliflower's already done. The tofu's already marinating all day. So, yeah, but it is definitely work. But you try to make as many meals out of it. Like, I'm not a person who, I'm never a one meal person. You got to get 2 meals out of things.
Or more.
Yeah, right. Or you make a big soup, The other thing I always tell folks is have staples in your house so that you don't actually, like you could do a burrito, a Mexican burrito, a burrito bowl from just stuff that you already have in the house. Beans, cheese, always keep these things on hand. Beans, cheese, eggs, and rice. Boom, you're already done. Dinner in 10 minutes,
Chipotle,
15
right there.
minutes. Oh, Chipotle, there you go. All right, so if we're following along with this recipe, which is...
I'm waiting for instructions.
You're waiting for instructions, I know. Okay, 4 tablespoons, okay, so we've got our 2 tablespoons of garlic. Or no, we've got our 2 cloves of garlic. We want our 4 tablespoons of soy, right here, honey. Where's the, yep, okay. So 4 tablespoons.
Usually don't measure, but
Yeah,
because
right.
we're in
That's
front of
the
the
other
audience.
thing. When they asked me to give you a recipe, I thought to myself, oh, I just sort of, right, 3 tablespoons. Exactly.
So,
Right, a Gestalt cook, yes.
That's what my soups are like.
yeah.
Yeah,
He'll
Yeah.
say he likes a soup, and I'll say enjoy it because you're never going to get it again.
Well, that's
Right.
the beauty, right?
1 tablespoon of this.
It's a feeling.
Maple syrup?
Maple syrup.
And is there
And
a
then-
particular reason why you choose maple syrup?
Because it gives it a nice little tiny bit of sweetness to it. The other thing that I love to cook with is toasted sesame oil.
Yes.
And you can get this at Trader Joe's. You can get it at the Hannaford. So 1 teaspoon of sesame oil. I'm going to add a tiny bit more. And then, what else? Canola. Where's our canola? Well, we don't have canola, but we will use, we'll use the olive oil. Do we have canola? That's
No.
avocado. Huh. Okay, that's all right. And then, I didn't talk to you about the tofu.
Vegetarian cooking and a lot of the ingredients does not necessarily mean no fat or low calorie. It just means better fats and typically lower calories. So for instance, avocados have a lot of calories, but they're unsaturated fats. They're like a superfood. They're great. They're fiber, they're good fat, but not low calorie. So, and the same, and eggs the same. Actually, eggs are not that caloric. But some of the oils, like when we cook at home, our younger daughter's always like, "Don't put in so much oil." She's always freaking out about the amount of oil because it is fat, but it's good fat.
Okay.
And you need a certain amount of fat.
And clearly, you definitely need a certain amount of fat. And
Now,
in fact, every cell in your body has cholesterol and is part of the cell membrane. So you need cholesterol too, but in excess. Yes. this is-
assistance, please, opening that.
Okay.
Okay, so tofu. Has everyone used tofu before or not? Is there anyone who hasn't used tofu? Of course, would be you.
At least he's honest. They don't have that at Chipotle.
Now, tofu comes in different types. Like you can get silken tofu, which is really soft, and I actually make a really delicious chocolate mousse with that. So good. Like you wouldn't even know it's tofu. It goes in the food processor with some melted chocolate, and some maple syrup.
It's pretty good.
So easy.
It's good.
And it's really good.
Not good for my diabetes.
Probably, well, it's not high.
It's not. It doesn't have that really.
Maple syrup.
Yeah. Better
Yeah.
than ice cream. Okay. But so tofu, you can get silken tofu, you can get, firm tofu, extra firm, and then I just got introduced to this, which is amazing. This is, although this does have a little, no, it's just in that. Okay. This is from Trader Joe's. Has anyone gotten this yet? So this is what they call their high protein organic tofu. Super firm. Okay, so it's like $2.50 a package, right? Kate, how much was it? $2.50, $2.99?
$2.99.
Okay, so it's $2.99, and if you want to just get extra firm, like just extra firm tofu, it's like $2. Or well, now with inflation, it's probably like $2.40. Yes, but it's still cheaper than whatever hamburger is these days, $6 a pound or whatever it is. But the difference is that this does not need the usual drainage. For those of us who used to use, no, that's the thing. Right, so actually, right, so it's funny because I brought what I do for the, let's see, I'm gonna have you chop this up, honey. So it's super firm and there's very little water in it. So typically we used to take the tofu and I would, this is my, it's Heart Month, so. So this is my Heartstone that I got off Brimstone Island, which is
You're not
off
supposed
of,
to tell because you're not supposed to
sorry.
take not supposed to take rocks off Brimstone.
Okay, it's near Vinyl Haven. Okay, anyway, but it has been cleaned many times. But I'll take it and I'll put it on top of the block of tofu, on top of, like a cookie sheet, like a cookie cooling, what am I trying to say?
Cooling rack.
Cooling rack, thank you. Put it on top of the cooling rack, and then the water just drips down below, and then you go back and find it, an hour or two later, and you press it a little more. But this is so bloody easy. And so what the other step that I used to do is dry fry the tofu, which I would put it into a cast iron pan and just with no oil, no nothing, just keep moving it around for 10, 15 minutes. And now, so much easier. So now we've cut up all these little cubes. Yes, please.
What is tofu?
It's soybean.
Soybean?
It's
Yeah.
like soy protein.
Soy protein. It's made from organic soybeans.
Basically, think of it as a.
And this has
I think-
14 grams of protein in it, in a serving.
It's good
One
for you, but
serving.
in and of itself, it's somewhat tasteless. So it's a vehicle for creating. It's sort of like chicken, which is not like super flavorful, but it, absorbs really good flavors and it can be delicious. And the same with this. If you eat tofu plain, you'd be like,
Yes.
I mean, it's not
Right.
objectionable, but it's.
If you put it in a soup or a lasagna, it'll take on the flavor of whatever you put
Yeah.
it in.
Right, exactly. It's really good. And the other thing, so we roast this, and sometimes you used to put some cornstarch on there.
Right.
Then
And
it gets
that's
crispy.
the
Then it's
last step.
really good.
Right. So you put a little bit of
It's like
cornstarch
chicken
in
nuggets
it.
almost.
You might like it.
I don't do chicken nuggets. But, no, I get his point.
No, it's
I
good.
don't think I've ever had tofu.
So
This
do you
is
all
your
know
big
about
night.
the cornstarch? No, I didn't know about the cornstarch either. My work partner, Dr. Jen Reel, who some of you may know, we did this tofu cooking demo a couple years ago, before COVID. And she said, well, you do know about cornstarch. And I said, no, I don't. And it just makes a huge difference. So anyway, so now that's it. Marinade done. And that simple step of pressing, you don't even have to do it anymore. Yes.
Cornstarch makes a difference for the baking.
When you bake it, it gives it a little crispy shell. Yeah. Yeah, so you marinate and then you stick it in the oven and then you make your
How
little
long do you
bowl.
leave it marinating?
I usually leave it, I mean, as long as however long you can marinate, the longer the better, but honestly, you can just whip it up and throw it in the oven in 15 minutes.
Did you put in the ginger?
Oh, thank you. I knew there was one step I forgot. All right. Well, I'm going to grate it in right now. It doesn't really matter. It's all going to get mixed. But basically, you just take the ginger root. Yeah. All right. There we go. So that is that.
I think it's more fragrant when it's not frozen.
So we want to thank Megan Perham because she did a lot of this veg prep. And I forgot to show you, but they're in here, these edamame, which are little green soybeans. So
TJ's.
this is interesting. You can, what's that?
Kate asked where we bought them. I
What'd
said,
you say?
Trader Joe's.
Oh, yeah. But Trader Joe's stopped carrying them for a while. So I don't know if they still have them, but Target has them. And they come in a frozen package just like this. And do you know how cheap they are? This is like $1.99 for a whole bag of soybeans, and they have 8 grams of fiber and 9 grams of protein. But my God, this is a great go-to snack. So there's cauliflower, edamame, grated carrot, peppers, tofu, ground up. Well, thanks everybody for coming, and enjoy your tofu to go. Okay.
Thank you all.